that's taking place in the streets.
Stand by, Arthur. As the prosecutor, Bob McCulloch, is coming into the courtroom now, let's watch and listen.
At approximately 11:45 a.m. on Saturday, the 9th of August, Ferguson Police Officer Darren Wilson was dispatched to the Northman's apartment complex for an emergency involving a 2-month-old infant having trouble breathing. At approximately 11:53, while still at the Northman's call, Wilson heard a radio broadcast for a stealing in progress at a market on West Florissant. The broadcast also included a brief description of the suspect, a black male wearing a white T-shirt who took a box of Swisher cigars. Other officers were dispatched to that store. Officer Wilson remained with the mother and the infant until EMS arrived to transport them to the hospital. Officer Wilson then left Northman's complex in his Ferguson police vehicle, a Chevy Tahoe SUV, and drove west on Canfield towards West Florissant. An additional description of the stealing suspect was broadcast about that time, wearing a red hat, yellow socks, khaki shorts, and he was with another male. After crossing West Florissant, the two walked east on Canfield in the middle of the street, Mr. Brown directly behind his companion. As Officer Wilson continued west on Canfield, he encountered Michael Brown and his companion still walking in the middle of the street. As Wilson slowed or stopped as he reached Mr. Brown, he told them to move to the sidewalk. Words were exchanged and they continued walking down the middle of the street. As they passed, Wilson observed that Michael Brown had cigarillos in his hand and was wearing a red hat and yellow socks. At approximately 12:02 p.m., Wilson radioed that he had two individuals on Canfield and needed assistance. Officer Wilson backed his vehicle at an angle, blocking their path and blocking the flow of traffic in both directions. Several cars approached from both east and west but were unable to pass the police vehicle. An altercation took place at the car with Officer Wilson seated inside the vehicle and Mr. Brown standing at the driver's window. During the altercation, 2 shots were fired by Officer Wilson while still inside the vehicle. Mr. Brown ran east on Canfield and Officer Wilson gave chase. Near the corner of Canfield and Copper Creek, Mr. Brown stopped and turned back towards Officer Wilson. Officer Wilson also stopped. As Michael Brown moved toward Officer Wilson, several more shots were fired by the officer, and Michael Brown was fatally wounded. Within seconds of the final shot, the assist car arrived. Less than 90 seconds passed between Officer Wilson's first contact with Michael Brown and his companion and the arrival of that assist car. Several witnesses described seeing an altercation in the car between Mr. Brown and Officer Wilson. It was described as tussling, wrestling, a tug of war, or just some movement. Several other witnesses described Mr. Brown as punching Officer Wilson while Mr. Brown was partially inside the vehicle. Many of the witnesses said they heard a gunshot while Mr. Brown was still partially inside the vehicle. At least one witness said that no part of Mr. Brown was ever inside the vehicle and that the shot was fired through an open window while Mr. Brown was standing outside. The vehicle and Officer Wilson's clothing and equipment were examined by various technicians and scientists. Mr. Brown's blood and/or DNA were located on the outside of the driver's door. His blood and DNA were also found on the outside of the left rear passenger door of the police vehicle. Mr. Brown's blood and DNA was found on the inside of the driver's door. The upper left thigh of Officer Wilson's pant leg, the front tire of Officer Wilson's shirt, and on Officer Wilson's weapon. Additionally, a bullet fired from Officer Wilson's weapon was located inside the driver's door. The shot was fired from inside the vehicle, striking the door in a downward angle at the armrest. The second bullet was not recovered. Almost all witnesses stated that after they heard the shot fired, while Mr. Brown was at the car, he hesitated and then ran east on Canfield. Most stated that almost immediately, Officer Wilson got out of his vehicle and chased after him. Some witnesses stated Wilson fired at Mr. Brown as he chased after him, striking him. At least one witness saying he struck, or one of those shots struck Mr. Brown. Others stated that he did not fire until Mr. Brown turned and came back toward Officer Wilson. At least one witness stated that as Officer Wilson got out of his vehicle, he shot Mr. Brown multiple times as Mr. Brown stood next to the vehicle. Yet another witness stated that Officer Wilson stuck his gun out the window and fired at Mr. Brown as Mr. Brown was running. One witness stated there were actually 2 police vehicles and 4 officers present, but only one officer fired a weapon. Most witnesses agreed that near the corner of Canfield and Copper Creek, Mr. Brown stopped and turned around facing Officer Wilson. Some said Mr. Brown did not move toward Officer Wilson at all, but was shot multiple times as he stood near the corner with his hands raised. In subsequent interviews with law enforcement or their testimony before the grand jury, many of the same witnesses acknowledged that they didn't actually see the shooting. Some were running for cover, some were relating what they heard from others, or as I said, what they assumed happened in that case. Several other witnesses maintained their original statement that Mr. Brown had his hands in the air and was not moving toward the officer when he was shot. You said Billy was shot? Several witnesses stated that Mr. Brown did not raise them briefly and then dropped them and turned toward Officer Wilson, who then fired several rounds. Other witnesses stated Mr. Brown stopped for a very brief period, then moved toward Officer Wilson again. One described his movement toward Officer Wilson as a full charge. According to some witnesses, Officer Wilson stopped firing when Mr. Brown stopped moving toward him, and resumed firing when Mr. Brown started moving toward him again. These witnesses did not make any statements to the media. The description of how Mr. Brown's hands raised his hands or the position of his hands is not consistent among the witnesses. Some described his hands as being out to the side, some said in front of him with his palms up. Others said his hands were raised near his head or by his shoulders. Still others said they were in front of his chest or down his stomach. Others described his hands as being in a running position or in fists. There were also various witness statements regarding Mr. Brown's movement after he stopped and turned back toward Officer Wilson. Some witnesses said Mr. Brown never moved toward Officer Wilson and was shot where he stood at the corner. Most said that the shots were fired as he moved toward Wilson. Mr. Brown's movements were described as walking, moving fast, stumbling, or full charge. Of other aspects of his case, the varying descriptions were sometimes provided by the same witnesses in subsequent statements or testimony. The entire area was processed by the St. Louis County Crime Scene Unit. A total of 12 rounds were fired by Officer Wilson. 2 shots at the car, 10 more shots farther east on Canfield. Mr. Brown sustained a grazed wound to his thumb while standing next to the vehicle. He sustained 6 or 7 more gunshot wounds, depending upon whether one of these shots was an entry or a re-entry wound. Mr. Brown sustained a second grazed wound, another grazed wound, to his right bicep. He also sustained wounds to his right forearm, upper front right arm, lateral right chest, upper right chest, forehead, and top of the head. The top of the head, forehead, and perhaps the upper right chest were consistent with his body being bent forward at the waist. Except for the first and last wounds, the medical examiners are unable to determine the order of the shots. Those wounds in the thigh sustained at the vehicle is likely the first wound. It was the only close-range shot. The shot to the top of the head was most likely the last. It would have rendered him immediately unconscious and incapacitated. Mr. Brown's body was located approximately 153 feet east of Officer Wilson's car. Mr. Brown's blood was located approximately 25 feet farther east past his body. A nearby tenant during a video chat inadvertently captured the final 10 shots on tape. There was a string of several shots, followed by a brief pause, followed by another string of several shots. As I stated earlier, the evidence and the testimony will be released following this statement. There was a full investigation and presentation of all evidence and appropriate instruction of the law to the grand jury. They discussed the repeated laws and relevant laws before arriving at their collective decision. After their exhaustive review of the evidence, the grand jury deliberated on the jurors, making their final decision. We determined that no probable cause exists to file any charges against Wilson, Darren Wilson, and Wilson found in evidence.
Ferguson. On my way to Ferguson. Can't take a plane, a bus, or a train, 'cause my money ain't that long.
You need to stop running. Not 36 feet.
to jail. The whole damn system is guilty as I said it right.
People are like, well, how are you going to get the hearts of people around the country? I'm gonna be honest, that there are certain hearts that I'm not going to be able to reach. Because I'm seen as this angry black person, I'm seen as this rioter, this leader. It's a justified expression of anger and frustration of using black life at a consistent basis.
He said, I'm tired of being peaceful, tired of being calm, you know. They've been going to war on us for over 400 years, so I ain't peaceful, I ain't no protester, I'm violent.
Everybody want me to be calm. Do you know how them bullets hit my son? What they did to his body as they hit his body?
I tried to told you.
Disperse immediately and stop throwing objects at law enforcement.
She said, I'm good.
I said indict, convict, send that killer cop to jail. The whole damn system is guilty as I said indict.
I could never imagine him, even in that situation, taking someone's life, let alone taking someone's life with malicious intent, you know. He's just the last person on earth that you would think to do something like that. I mean, it's just shocking. I can say without speaking to Darren, without even having heard his statements, that at that moment in time, he was scared for his life. I am 100% positive of that.
How can you have more cops and more crime? Why? The white public that the so-called Negro community is a criminal element, they can go in and question, brutalize, murder unarmed, innocent Negroes, and the white public is gullible enough to back them up. This makes the Negro community a police state. This makes the Negro neighborhood a police state. It's the most heavily patrolled. It has more police in it than any other neighborhood, yet it has more crime in it than any other neighborhood. How can you have more cops and more crime? Why? It shows you that the cops must be in cahoots with the criminals.
You testified.
Yes, sir. And even if he did appear to be moving closer, you could still see that he was visibly unarmed. And even if you had a good amount of distance between you guys, I don't understand why he would fear for his life.
How do you explain it?
That's what everybody else is asking. How do you explain this? That's why half the city's torn up now.
We back. Let's get this right now.
Sincere.
Yeah, what it is, man.
What's going on, brother?
Glad to have you back in here, man.
I hear you. I hear you, man. Let me talk to you.
All right, you got it.
They say the struggle is real, the hustle is hard. The only ones that feel a brother's pain are the guys. I'm on the front lines, seeing who can I reach with a ghetto gospel, hoping that it's saving the streets. How can I teach somebody who don't want to be taught? I even save a soul that would rather be lost. And why you towing that baggage as you carry across? I'd rather you unload your feelings as you carry your thoughts. But the system of oppression got them locked up in chains. Give them a key to be free, and they looking too strange. Then I remind myself our life seems unfair. If heaven's a mile away, someone should take us there. Come on.
Come on. Come on. Come on.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on. It's been such a long journey in a short time. Seems like yesterday, oh how time flies. Memories resurface from the archives, filled with pain and the struggle just from our lives. But I see so much more through my eyes. Buried alive, left for dead, yet we still rise. That's the passion that the spirit lies deep inside. Willpower at its highest can't be denied. And it's the secret of success from Jews of all kinds. It's all mental, so heaven just a state of mind. Remind yourself when life seems unfair. Hold my hand, close your eyes, I'll take you there.
Yeah. Come on. We'll take you there. Come on. If y'all want to follow, heaven and hell is just a state of mind, people.
Come on.
What state you in? Huh?
Come on.
Come on. You better analyze what other people already recognize.
I quest to seek the truth before my body rests. So only wisdom and knowledge is what I do in jest. I run our vultures in hopes to change the culture. Like Sonny and Goodfellas looking over both shoulders. I'm old school, watching this new world taking over. Landscapes are changing, leading people don't notice. Ain't go inside us, feelings wise to the surface. But what lies beneath is how we all soul searching. Just understand that no man's perfect. It's tough enough when you don't know your purpose. Then life reminds me of times how it's unfair. I close my eyes and think of heaven, then I'm right there.
Right there. LD, what you told him? You right there. That's what we trying to tell you, family. You right there. You're closer than what you think. Me and LD been saying this to each other even about this music, we're closer than what we think. We're sharing that with y'all, family. You're closer than what you think. Heaven and hell is a state of mind. So where is your mind? It's time to wake up. It's time to analyze the situation. It's time to materialize. It's time to wake up.
ABC News exclusive. The officer from Ferguson, Missouri, who will not be charged in the shooting death of Michael Brown, speaking out for the first time. Darren Wilson with our George Stephanopoulos today, revealing what he says happened while in that patrol car, the struggle. He describes the moment he first pulls the trigger, and then what he says plays out when he gets out of that car.
On August 9th, he said he saw Michael Brown walking down the middle of the street on the yellow line. He asked him to move over. Brown didn't, so the officer pulled his car beside him. This is what happened next.
John opened the door and got out of the car. And when I did so, I opened the door. I said, "Hey, come here for a minute." And that's when he turned and said, "What the f*** are you gonna do about it?" and slammed my door shut on me. That would be against every training ever taught to any law enforcement officer. I don't know what or how many hit me after that. I just know there was a barrage of swinging and grabbing and pulling for about 10 seconds. And then what? I had reached out my window of my right hand to grab onto his forearm because I was going to try and move him back and get out of the car to where I'm no longer trapped. And when I felt it, I just felt the immense power that he had. And the way I've described it is it was like a 5-year-old holding on to Hulk Hogan. That's just how big this man was.
Hulk Hogan?
He was very large. Very powerful man. I didn't know if I'd be able to withstand another hit like that.
Where's your gun at that point?
I keep it on my right hip. I take it out and I come up, I point it at him. And when I said, "Get back or I'm gonna shoot you." And then his response immediately, he grabbed the top of my gun. And when he grabbed it, he said, "You're too much of a to shoot me." And while he's doing that, I can feel his hand trying to come over my hand and get inside the trigger guard and try and shoot me with my own gun. And that's when I pulled the trigger for the first time. What happened? It didn't go off. The gun was actually being jammed by his hand on top of the firearm. So I tried again.
on the sidewalk back 23 and a half feet, which he ended up in the middle of the road. Okay? And this is the crime scene evidence that caused our people on the ground to call me and say, Rev, before you make yourself look bad, you need to know what really happened. Because that's not what the television media showed us. You see, when I first heard it on the media, I got infuriated. I was ready to go out there and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You see what I'm saying? So he ran back toward the officer, and that's what gave the officer the justifiable right to shoot. Officers, we are trained to pull that trigger until the threat is eliminated. Did y'all just hear what I said? Yeah. We're trained to pull the trigger until the threat is eliminated. And And again, here's the sick part about that. That's up to the officer. It's depending on what's going on in that cop's head. And if he feels threatened, right. So he kept pulling the trigger until the brother fell. And of course, as he was going down, that was the last kill shot in the top of the head. You see? Now, again, the media didn't tell y'all that. And that's why everybody's inflamed. Here's what the media said. An unarmed black teenager, 18-year-old, was shot and killed by a white police officer. When I heard that, I got ballistic too. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I got ballistic, man. I went off until I examined the crime scene reports myself. The media didn't show you that.
Can I ask the audience a question? Especially you younger people there. Which one of y'all would run back towards an armed police officer who had already shot you? I mean,
nobody in their right mind.
Nobody. I mean, it just defies common sense.
It defies common sense. But again, see, this is why. How many of y'all have seen CSI on television? Okay, see, that's the whole purpose of crime scene units. Okay, it's the evidence on the ground that tells you what happened. It paints the whole picture all over again for you. Okay? And the thing is, because the brother was not in his right state of mind. Okay? And see, another thing we need to check. Do I have y'all's permission to speak candidly?
Yes.
Permission to speak candidly.
Granted.
I'm not going to speak if you don't give me permission.
Sure. Granted.
Permission to speak candidly. Let's take the angel's wings off of this guy. We're acting like he was an upstanding citizen of the community. Like he was a pastor or a civil rights leader. We're talking a brother who was come on, y'all, he was a member of
He was just like them kids sitting right there.
No, I'm not gonna say no, I can't say that, brother. That's not fair. That's not fair.
Man, he
that's
was
not
a
fair.
young black man.
Brother, you don't know that. You don't know that.
Yeah, but you do.
I'm telling you. I'm there, brother. I'm
based on what?
Okay.
You wasn't at the crime scene. Based on what?
Out of respect to the people we're sitting in front of.
Yeah, but
don't disagree with me like that, man.
No, man, but I'm disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yes, you are.
This is not personal.
I'm not talking to
This is
personal.
not personal. If Obama was sitting there, I would raise the same issues with him.
Brother,
yeah.
I'm telling you what happened. You don't have to accept
No,
it.
you're telling me from a police perspective.
What better perspective to tell you?
Man, come on, man.
What better perspective to tell you, brother?
This just doesn't make any sense to me. What you saying?
All right, I don't know what to tell you, brother. I can only tell you what happened. Now, you don't have to accept it.
Tell me what they told you.
No, brother. You don't have to accept it.
You can tell me what they told you.
Once the system is primed for maximizing revenue, starting with fines and fine enforcement, the city relies on the police force to serve essentially as a collection agency for the municipal court, rather than as a law enforcement entity focused primarily on maintaining and promoting public safety. And a wide variety of tactics, including disciplinary measures, are used to ensure certain levels of ticketing by individual officers, regardless of public safety needs. As a result, it has become commonplace in Ferguson for officers to charge multiple violations for the same conduct. 3 or 4 charges for a single stop is considered fairly routine. Some officers even compete to see who can issue the largest number of citations during a single stop. A total that in at least one instance rose as high as 14. And we have observed that even minor code violations can sometimes result in multiple arrests to begin with. Others were punitive or retaliatory in nature. The police department's routine use of tasers was found to be not really unconstitutional, but abusive and dangerous. Records showed a really disturbing history of using unnecessary force against people with mental illness. In a community where all of these findings indicate that the practices and constitutional violations have not only severely undermined public trust, eroded police legitimacy, and made local residents less safe, but created an intensely charged atmosphere where where people feel under assault and under siege by those who are charged to serve and to protect them. Now, of course, violence is never justified, but seen in this context, amid a highly toxic environment defined by mistrust and resentment, stoked by years of bad feelings, and spurred by illegal and misguided practices, it's not difficult to imagine how ensuring meaningful, sustainable, and verifiable reform will require that these and other measures be part of a court-enforceable remedial process that includes involvement from community stakeholders, as well as independent oversight in order to remedy the conduct that we have identified, to address the underlying culture that we have uncovered, and to restore and to rebuild the trust that has so badly been eroded. Now, as the brother of a retired police officer, I know that the overwhelming majority of America's brave men and women in law enforcement, they do their jobs honestly. It's illegal for police officers to detain a person, even briefly, without a reasonable suspicion. It's become common practice for officers in Ferguson to stop pedestrians and to request identification for no reason at all. And even in cases where police encounters start off, steps that we have taken are only the beginning of a necessarily resource-intensive and inclusive process to promote reconciliation, to reduce and eliminate bias, and to bridge gaps and build understanding. And in the days ahead, the Department of Justice will stay true to my promise, vigilant in its execution and determined in the pursuit of justice in every case.
Sincere Nokwaree.
I was watching the news. I seen something that just drove me crazy, man. Fucking police. Seem like they think that they can do anything. But you hit us, we hit back. No justice for us, no peace for you. Know that.
Who these people think they deceiving? They tell us that we free then. They kill us every weekend. No justice, no peace then. They take you to a precinct. No shower, no eating. No phone call, no leaving. No judge on the weekend. They act like we don't see them. They probably think it's sweet when we take bullets and these beatings. Fist clubs and feed them. They walk away scot-free then. Tell me keep the peace, man. I should take it decent. Respect the policeman. Ain't taking this brutality like it's a formality. It's way too many casualties. No peace for none of they faculties. No justice for my people. This whole system evil. Every day it's a sequel. Then they tell us to be peaceful. No justice, no peace. 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 We still fighting for equality. Bigotry is all I see. My people need to follow me, cause this ain't no democracy. Nice sticks and handcuffs. They shoot us while our hands up. This I can't stand for. These cowards need to man up. This country built on blood, sweat. Everything is suspect, but we ain't giving up yet. My people out here upset. They shoot us and they beat us till we tear the streets up. They trying to deceive us with candidates like these nuts. They always do us so wrong. The government know what goes on. They trying to make us go home. They always do the poll wrong. They flood us with drugs, then tell us that we thugs. These people shedding blood while they fill us up with slugs. They hit us, then let's hit back. You bogus if you sit back. They go home and they kick back. No talking, a chit chat. No justice for my people. This whole system evil. Every day it's a sequel. Then they tell us to be peaceful. No justice, no peace. No peace. No peace. No justice, 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 no peace. Real talk, man. If you sit back and watch this go on, and you don't do nothing or say nothing, then you crazy. How could you sit back and watch this go on and be like, what we gonna do, Mark? What we gonna do, protest? Yeah, we need to do all
fighting the motherfucker is one thing. That's what's up. But when you start hitting these motherfuckers, you're gonna have to have more than some backup, some mind power with that shit. You understand what I'm saying? No peace, 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 no peace.
Overnight, I went from being a small-town police chief to being part of a conversation about racism, equality, and the role of policing in that conversation. I want to say this to the Brown family. No one who has not experienced the loss of a child can understand what you're feeling. I'm truly sorry for the loss of your son. I'm also sorry that it took so long to remove Michael from the street. The time that it took involved very important work on the part of investigators who are trying to collect evidence and gain a true picture of what happened that day. But it was just too long, and I'm truly sorry for that. Please know that the investigating officers meant no disrespect to the Brown family, to the African American community, the people of Canfield. They were simply trying to do their jobs. I do want to say to any peaceful protester who did not feel that I did enough to protect their constitutional right to protest, I'm sorry. The right of the people to peacefully assemble is what the police are here to protect. If anyone who was peacefully exercising that right is upset and angry, I feel responsible, and I'm sorry. I'm also aware of the pain and the feeling of mistrust felt in some of the African American community towards the police department. For any mistakes I have made, I take full responsibility. It's an honor to serve the city of Ferguson and the people who live here.
You've gotten a lot of criticism, and you're having to deal with that. A lot of people are questioning your credibility. You understand that. Do you understand why?
I really don't understand why. I see they bring up my past, my history, but it's not like it's a long rap sheet. This one incident shouldn't make me a bad person. I was a college student at the time. I was at University. The service was beautiful. I enjoyed every bit of it. It brought me to tears, but I love everybody that came out and supported us. Thank you so much for coming, and thank everybody for coming out and showing the family love and support, because they really need it. We all need it. It gotta change. It gotta change. It gotta change.
Walk us through what happened on Saturday. You and Michael Brown were walking down the street. So what happened next?
As we're walking down the street, the squad car vehicle approaches us. Now we're on the side of the vehicle, and the officer says, "Get the out of the street," verbatim. It was his words. And At that moment, I told the officer, my friend Big Mike didn't speak. I told the officer that we was not but a minute away from our destination and that we would be out of the street. And at that time, me and my friend Big Mike started to walk again, and the officer, he seemed like he was driving off, but in a second, he put the car in reverse, and he reversed very rapidly at a fast pace, and he slanted the car to a manner that it almost hit me and my friend Big Mike, so we had to step back, and we were now front center with the officer inside the vehicle, but we were so close, almost inches away, that when he tried to open his door aggressively, the door ricocheted both off me and Big Mike's body, and it closed back on the officer. At that time, he reached out the window with his left arm. He grabbed onto my friend Big Mike's throat, and he's trying to pull him in the vehicle. And my friend Big Mike, very angrily, is trying to pull away from the officer. And the officer now is struggling with trying to hold a grip on my friend Big Mike as he's trying to pull away. And as in a minute, I heard, I'll shoot. I'm about to shoot. And I'm standing so close to Big Mike and the officer. I look in his window and I see that he has his gun pointed at both of us. And when he fired his weapon, I moved seconds before he pulled the trigger. I saw the fire come out the barrel, and I instantly knew that it was a gun. I looked at my friend Big Mike, and I saw that he was struck in the chest or upper region, because I saw blood splatter down inside his right area. And at that time, we both took off running. Now, it was almost 2 or 3 minutes we was running, and I was able to hide myself behind the first vehicle that was up on the scene. And the officer then got out his car. My friend Big Mike was still running. He ran past me and saw me in plain sight. He said to me verbatim that, he said, "Keep running, bro." He said, "Keep running, bro. Keep running, bro." He said, "Keep running, bro." I was so scared and feared for my life that my body was in shock. I couldn't move. I couldn't think at that time. And almost in an instant, my body started rising, and I see the officer proceeding after my friend Big Mike with his gun drawn, and he fired a second shot, and that struck my friend Big Mike. And at that time, he turned around with his hands up, beginning to tell the officer that he was unarmed and to tell him to stop shooting. But at that time, the officer was firing several more shots into my friend, and he hit the ground and died. I watched him until his body stopped moving, and then I ran and vomited in my mouth, throwing up, hyperventilating, not knowing what to do. I just ran.
Our blood is being spilled in the streets. The blood of Alton Sterling, the blood of Philandro Castile. Let's take us back to Mike Brown, Darius Robinson.
Michael Brown was the aggressor on the police officer.
No, it was not. That was your version.
No, it wasn't. It was Eric Holder's Department of Justice.
Department of Justice has failed us as well. Our blood is...
What facts do you have that Michael... No, so we're going to have it back and forth.
Our blood is...
What facts do you have that Michael Brown was not the aggressor, that Officer Darren Wilson was the aggressor?
Because I lived in St. Louis and I talked to some of the witnesses, and I know that in America, unless you have a videotape, then the word of the officers prevails.
Do you understand that at least 5 black witnesses came forward in that case to say that Michael Brown was the aggressor on Officer?
Michael Brown was unarmed, and Michael Brown was
he was
not
unarmed until he tried to steal the cop's gun. let me take you back to Ferguson, Missouri, and the case there against Officer Darren Wilson. He shot and killed Michael Brown. He said it was in self-defense, and you came out publicly and said it wasn't in self-defense, that there was no deadly threat to Officer Darren Wilson. The DOJ found that was not correct. They could find no evidence that he was not in fear of his life and exonerated him. Do you feel bad about what you said?
No, you understood what the DOJ said. The DOJ said they did not find evidence to prosecute him on civil rights.
They said there was no reason to disbelieve, no evidence to disbelieve his story. He was in fear of his life.
They said that he was not in violation of civil rights and that they found no evidence that he was in fear or that he was not in fear.
No, they said there was no evidence to disprove his statement that he was in fear of his life. We saw this happen with Michael Brown of Ferguson.
And we still don't know the facts. We have a police officer's word and the grand jury's word.
No, we have the Department of Justice's word.
The Department of Justice shut down Ferguson. Ferguson had to be shut down because it's so corrupt.
The Department of Justice found that the police there had endemic racism. They found that.
Right.
But they also exonerated Officer Darren Wilson.
That's not a...
And they found Hands Up, Don't Shoot was a lie, and that Michael Brown was the aggressor.
Wow. Here's what I'll say.
Don't wow me.
Don't tell me not to wow you. I can say wow if I want to, and I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. They found systemic racism, right? Mm-hmm. So it's unbelievable. They also found systemic racism, and we know that Darren Wilson left the department because it was so racist it had to be disbanded, and he went to Ferguson, another department that is rife with racism.
So that makes him a racist.
Absolutely. You know what? I have no problem.
Michael Brown grabbed that officer's gun and tried to shoot him in his patrol car.
That is, no one has proven that. No one has proven that.
That's what Eric Holder's DOJ concluded.
And Eric Holder's DOJ concluded that department was so rife with
that's a dodge. I already conceded that, DL. We're talking about Michael Brown and the lie of Hands Up.
I don't dodge at all. I'm here in Fox News.
Then let's stay on it. Then let's stay on Michael Brown.
We're talking about I'm not talking. I'm not trying to get out of bounds.
Then let's stay in bounds.
We were talking about the young man that just got murdered in Minnesota.
And the rush to judgment and the assumption of something when you don't actually know it.
First off, what I'll tell you is this.
So we're stopping here for a moment because this is a key point, and one a lot of people missed or glossed over in the hot debate after a grand jury decided not to indict Officer Darren Wilson after the DOJ came out and said they didn't have the case against him. The report from the Department of Justice specifically says the following. On page 11, quote, "The evidence does not support finding that Wilson was unreasonable in his fear that Michael Brown would once again attempt to harm him and gain control of his gun." And again on page 12, quote, "There is no reliable evidence to disprove Officer Wilson's belief that he feared for his safety." That's from the Department of Justice. Let's pick it up again with Reverend Al.
Apologize for believing it?
For what you said, for telling the world that there was no deadly threat when there was.
But I said what I believe.
Did you correct the record?
Did I correct what record?
Did you go on your television program and report to the world what the DOJ had actually found?
I reported what the DOJ said.
About the death of Michael Brown.
I don't know that I stated the line you want, but you didn't see me out there protesting afterward, did you? Did you?
I think that's a good place to wrap.
Sincere Nokwaree.
I just looked at him. I said, "Well, what's your message to the world?" You see, I just want everybody to chill out a little bit. And I see it with this today. But if we have more of this, it should have took this to get us together like this.
he started out really quiet and shy. And then when he turned about 16, he just really opened up and started talking to us about what he wanted to do and who he wanted to be.
I got memories in my head that will never go away. Good time. Sure, get through it.
Yeah, lied on me, hated on me, they waited on me. Got straight, wasn't working. Time never had a stand still. OG, the snitch on they cold keys. Right jam, that made the lead. Good D&I in the place to be. Yeah, lied on me, hated on me, they waited on me. Got straight, wasn't working. Time never had a stand still. OG, the snitch on they cold keys. Right jam, that made the lead. Good D&I in the place to be. Yeah, lied on me.
Sincere Nokwaree.
Spanish were defeating the Moors. A painting was done of the defeat, and there were black generals surrendering. Why were they surrendering if they were not in charge?
Young Lil Ricky still looking for stacks. No job, still keep some yak in the sack. Auntie still let him smoke in the back. As long as he humble and he take out the trash. Head always down, he just looking for cash. And a girl with a job that he hope he can smash. Show up off his ass, but he blow money fast. Selling you a strip, trying to live off his past. I gotta go, cause he don't really wanna grow. How you get it, he don't wanna know. Satisfied being a domino. Taking calls at the corner store. Dodge your kid, she gon' charge you, bro. Post $1 million, got $1 though. But you stay on the lean when you hang with your team. For a night, you're a king, wearing red Robin jeans. You keep an iPhone out of home. Homeboy, you grown. Can't be right if it's wrong. Still trying to take a nap without a comb. Why everywhere that I go, they pumping that gas at the stove. Asking for money and smoke. Oh, go. Why everywhere that I go, they pumping that gas at the stove. Asking for money and smoke. Wherever I go. Why everywhere that I go, no following no whiners, they slow. Drunk off the trussies they chose. Non-believers I pity the most. Have no soul but they scared of a ghost. Setting goals, don't believe in them though. Selling flex when they come round they folk. Talking rich but the truth is you poor. Only hustle for reefer to smoke. Doing the most, broke. Sitting complaining the most. Keeping a bottle of hand. We see him, he's asking for paper. Another crab in the den. Pulling you in when intentions on making you neighbors. Can't give you no senses, I'm giving you sense. My love was more than $1. If knowledge the key, I give you the key. But don't spend it all on no powder. Transfer that knowledge to power. Why everywhere that I go, they pumping that gas at the store. Asking for money and smoke. Oh, go. Why everywhere that I go, they pumping that gas at the store. Asking for money and smoke.
We have to know.
You got to know.
We live in. Utilize the power we've been given. The struggle is real.
store. And if your money is up your butt, or up your ass, whatever you call it. Every road like whatever you call it, but up the gas that you own up. Let's get from money and try to get all that paper. You're playing them games, you're playing them games. You're playing them games. Why everywhere in that paper? In that paper. That's what I do, you should too. What I do, you should too. What I do, what I would. What I do, you should too. What I do, you should too. Woo! Get in that paper. Woo! Get in that paper. Woo! Get in that paper. Woo! You should too. 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 Get in that paper. Get up your ass and get in that paper. Woo! Get in that paper. Get in that paper.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. As everyone in this room has heard, people throughout Missouri, throughout this country, and throughout the world, frankly, they've heard about Ferguson. And Ferguson was not known 30 days ago. Today it is known, and the nickname for Ferguson is now either Baghdad or Ground Zero. And you had all the wonderful churchgoers on one side, and you had all these youth in the street. We had already stopped traffic all day, and the police officers were fine with that. And then someone from the church-going crowd said, "No, get out of the street." They had no clue what we had been doing all day. And Haku was with his friends, and they had their hands up. Hands up, don't shoot. By the way, I have 18-month-old children. When you say hands up, they throw their hands up. 5-year-olds. When you throw your hands up, they say don't shoot. 3-year-olds. When you raise your hands up, they respond don't shoot. That is now the psychology of my community. Don't shoot. That's our first response. That's not supposed to be our first response, to raise your hands up and say don't shoot, because you walk around every single day as a living target. That is not the way that this world is supposed to be like. That is not how we are supposed to be living our lives. You see an officer and your first inclination is to throw your hands up and say don't shoot. And this is the state that Governor Jay Nixon is responsible for. And we have 18-month-olds who are throwing their hands up, saying don't shoot. I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of kids on school buses with their hands out of the window, don't shoot. Do you know what kind of conditioning that is? To just walk in a town and you're looked at as a moving target. The psychology from anywhere from 12 years old to 30 years old. You know that you're a moving target. You know it. You're gonna lose your job for it. You're gonna be kicked out of school for it. That is the tragedy that all of my constituents who are here today face. I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of kids on school buses with their hands out of the window, don't shoot. Do you know what kind of conditioning that is? To just walk in a town and you're looked at as a moving target. You guys have seen pictures of kids on school buses with their hands out of the window, don't shoot. Do you know what kind of conditioning that is? To just walk in a town and you're looked at as a moving target.
if the police give us justice, this neighborhood would be
Charge that dude.
We would be all right if these police stopped treating us black people like we're pieces of crap. Maybe I said pieces of crap. Now maybe this whole world wouldn't be like this right now.
Yeah, we would.
I mean, we're doing this crisis because we want freedom.
Everybody be safe. Protect your kids. Protect everybody you know, and protect your granny. Love you, everyone.
1, 2, 3. Justice for all.
When you look at your two sons and you see what happened to Michael Brown, are you afraid for them?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We met Casey Smith.
I'm still grappling with how to explain the verdict to my child because I'm still trying to figure out.
My 3 teenagers, they don't understand all the hate.
It's hard to explain a whole history of race relations to a 9-year-old.
I don't really know how to get into it. I want her to know that her life is valued as being an African-American child.
He's tall for his age, he's thick for his age, and I'm afraid as he grows up that he's gonna be, a big burly guy like a Mike Brown.
Wow.
What conversation? No, and my father, who's a son of St. Louis, he said, when are you gonna have the talk with your boys?
That's right.
He said, I had to have the talk with your brother. He said, and my brother, and we grew up in California and Minnesota, so we grew up in a different racial atmosphere. He said, my father had to talk with me. My grandfather was from Mississippi. And he said, his father had to talk with him. Our families have been destroyed and torn apart and stuff like that. So, Crystal, while things are changing, they're not quite the same.
I'm going to have to tell him something. I don't really know how I'm going to put it into words.
Sit yourself down, son. Let me talk to you. Got some things I want to tell you about some things that we as a people have been going through, still going through. See, we live in a world that doesn't care one thing about you. But you gotta understand the game, learn how to play, so that you can make it through. Back. What a wonderful world this would be. I can only imagine how it would be. Justice. Ooh, peace. Little bit of freedom. What a wonderful it would be. Take it back. What a wonderful world this would be. It would be so nice. It would be so nice. This would be.
What will we tell our children about our fight for freedom? Extended again, what will we tell our children about our role in history? How we survived to this point? When people say we were slaves, what do we tell our children about our slavery in particular and slavery in general? What do we tell our children so they can stop turning their face away and want to crawl under the table when you mention our condition in the world, when will they stop blaming themselves? You have not explained it to them because you have not explained it to yourself. You have to know your oppressor and the nature of his oppression and what you did about it. At what point do we sit down and not argue about TV? At what time do we sit down and tell simple stories about our revolutionary heritage and get it across to our children? We have the longest revolutionary heritage of any people on the face of the earth. We have fought longer and harder and against great odds than any people on the face of the earth. Why do our children
Just miles down the road from the scene of protests in Ferguson, we're hearing a lot about Florissant. Just down Florissant is the grave of Dred Scott, who is buried in the Cavalry Cemetery on West Florissant Avenue. Born a slave in Virginia, Dred Scott sued in a St. Louis court for his freedom. The case went to the Supreme Court, resulting in a landmark Supreme Court decision that's called the worst
So the
ever.
most hostile places to live, that they say, those are the places that they want to market and try to get this race riot going. So they thought for sure when they went down there and sacrificed.
They not even from there. The fucking CIA, shit, talk to the owners out there, man. Put niggas to St. Louis to fucking loot, man.
But local store owners believe people from out of town are responsible for the recent heightened violence and looting.
So they couldn't be from here. We have our validated customers, and every face yesterday was a different face.
Talk to.
That a second officer who arrived later to the scene also drew his weapon. He said, "The one cop was the one who shot him. Then I saw the other officer pull a gun out, but he didn't shoot." That same worker described how Brown staggered dead after the second shot 20 to 25 feet to the ground, explaining he was like a walking dead guy. Keep in mind, these men don't live in Ferguson and don't know the Brown family, but their account does square with what other witnesses have said. The woman who took cell phone video of Brown's body lying in the street also told CNN that Brown was shot from behind, just like the contractor in the green shirt says.
While he was running away from the officer trying to get away, he was getting shot at.
Now, just hear me out now. That's why I say the shutdown will come as a surprise. The surprise is people in your family selling you out, offering you to these corporations so they can get paid, man. This shit is wicked as shit, but let me try to break it down.
We need to raise more money. Folks would get stopped, they'd get tickets, then they'd have to wait in line to pay it, take a day off work. Folks would lose their jobs. In some cases, they were thrown in jail because they didn't
This is another reason why it's exceptionally important for them to maintain the color code system and have Negro church leaders keep promoting that amongst our people, and our people not knowing that it actually disenfranchises them, not necessarily from a society to which they don't belong, but it disenfranchises them from international law, government, and protections too, because no such people exist. And it's a total, in civilized society, it's called a total dishonor.
He's bald up, he had his arms like under his stomach, and he was like halfway down.
In 1857, the court ruled African Americans were not citizens of the United States and therefore had no rights to sue in federal courts. The court described blacks as, quote, beings of an inferior order and altogether unfit to associate with the white race, either in social or political relations, and so far inferior that they had no rights which the white man was bound to respect, unquote.
I see.
These Negroes, God damn it. It's almost like I wish I could go there and just slap the shit out this nigga right now. You guys, how Al Sharpton was reaching over Mike and to communicate with the wife. He's sitting there with a frozen face with his hands in the fucking pyramid. I'm like, God, come on, man. This dude, I don't feel sorry for these motherfuckers.
The government's findings were based upon information received from Ferguson's own citizens.
from Ferguson's own records and Ferguson's own officials, and they demonstrated a clear pattern and practice of violations of the Constitution and of federal law. After announcing our findings almost a year ago, we began negotiations with the City of Ferguson on a court-enforceable consent decree that would bring about necessary police and court reform. From the outset, we made clear that our goal was to reach an agreement to avoid litigation. But we also made clear that if there was no agreement, we would be forced to go to court to protect the rights of Ferguson residents. Painstaking negotiations lasted more than 26 weeks as we sought to remedy literally years of systemic and systematic deficiencies. A few weeks ago, the Department of Justice and Ferguson's own negotiators came to an agreement that was both fair and cost-effective, and that would provide all the residents of Ferguson the constitutional and effective policing and court practices guaranteed to all Americans. As agreed, it was presented to the Ferguson City Council for approval or rejection. And last night, the Ferguson City Council rejected the consent decree approved by their own negotiators. Their decision leaves us no further choice. Today, the Department of Justice is filing a lawsuit in federal district court against the City of Ferguson, Missouri, alleging a pattern and practice of law enforcement conduct that violates the First, the Fourth, and the 14th Amendments of the Constitution and federal civil rights laws. We intend to aggressively prosecute this case, and we intend to prevail.